What's up, everybody? We are going to quickly break down how to find what tasks in your life you should be automating. Automation is an extremely high leverage thing you can focus on to just create more focus and time in your life. So, before we dive into that, I'm Jake. This is Andre. This is the Amplified Action Podcast. So, the first point, the first strategy to identifying what to automate in your life is to make sure you're aware of what you're doing in your life. That seems obvious, but we're not always tracking or thinking about what we do. Andre, I would love to hear your strategies for figuring out what to automate.
So for me, I use my emotional cues as things like, okay, this is making me frustrated, or I'm feeling anxious about this, or whatever negative emotion set. If I'm having a negative emotion about something, I try and track it to its source so that I can automate and get rid of those things as fast as possible because it really helps me narrow in on the activities and stuff that I want to do.
That makes a ton of sense. And my strategy, the way I think about it is from a time perspective. So I try to track most of my activities, sometimes to a fault where I'm tracking too much. And it's hard to keep track of sometimes because then you'll like forget to stop a timer and then it gets all messed up. And then you're like, everything's ruined. Um, so I like your strategy a lot because it seems like very, I don't want to say low effort because it takes some conscious ability to sort of like pay attention and you need some structure, right? Like you could have a daily journaling practice or a nightly review if you want to call it something that doesn't sound so journally, Dear Diary ish. It's a systematic review of my life that I do every evening. And it's like, well, you're writing to your diary, but it saves the same it serves the same purpose, right? Like you're reflecting back and you're identifying opportunities. So if you just ask yourself at the end of every night, maybe like two questions, we can combine ours. Like, where did my time go, and then how did I feel about where my time went? And if you're spending a lot of time on something that you don't enjoy doing or didn't feel good about it, that is a perfect example of something to automate in your life, or to look at automating in your life at least.
Yeah, there are all kinds of to-do list type apps, and we don't need to get into those. You could have it be a piece of notebook paper, and it would do the same thing. And I don't really believe in hyper analyzing how much time I spend on everything because that's super variable based on how much sleep you've gotten and all kinds of different things that make you work faster and work slower. So I kind of rail against that. However, if you end up with many days where you're just like, what did I even do today? Like, why do I feel like I got nothing done? And then you go through and you're like, okay, so the reason I didn't get this done is because I had laundry, I did landscaping, I did blank, and I did blank, and these are all little things that added together can put you off track by theoretically 2 or 3 hours, right? And when you lose 2 or 3 hours of your wakeful day, your day is not going to be as productive or necessarily fulfilling. So, taking all of those things that just off track you, first of all, it'll help you understand, like, oh, okay, I can be easy on myself. I was really doing things. I actually did stuff. So that's the first benefit. And the second benefit is you have this list of things that you can try to batch together to make sure that it doesn't interrupt the flow when you're doing things that matter a little more. To me, that's the biggest part of finding like low leverage automation is figuring out a way to get all those low leverage activities and crunch it up into as small a time block as possible so that it doesn't take up other areas of my day or my week.
Yep, absolutely. And it's not always about utilizing technology, like you said, like low tech options, batching tasks together, super easy thing you can do that is going to save time. And in some ways you are automating it because you're automating your mindset, you're automating your flow, right? How I'm doing that. Like we are the ultimate robot to program is our own brain, right? So it's like setting up a strategy of basking certain low leverage tasks together that you have to get done, and then removing as much friction as possible so that you can be as efficient as possible during that time. Super great way to look at automation.
Yeah, for sure. Just having some kind of practice of reviewing is extremely important in making sure that you're keeping the task list task list shorter and more on point. Like something that I do is I put my main big goal in bold at the top of the list. And sometimes the thing that's up at the top of the list is get some rest, things that that's actually right now the most important thing to do. I need to optimize for that. And then I'll have other things underneath, right? And having that kind of clear prioritization really helps you build your decision making for the day or for the week or whatever it is. So, gathering emotional data, time data, figuring out what's a leveraged activity and a non-leveraged activity, and then getting rid of all of the non-leveraged activities as quickly as possible, especially if you can batch it in a spot where you're not exactly the smartest, most high energy version of yourself. That's the ultimate goal of automation for decision making on a personal level, at least for me.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to wrap this up. There's just some quick actionable tips that I think you can try out. If you got any value, go ahead and like, subscribe. We appreciate you. We'll talk to y'all later.
Thanks, guys.